Board.
Yes.
Gonna check the live feed. And we're there. All right. And enjoy.
Thank you, Doug. You got to open that door. Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education special meeting, the adjourned budget meeting hearing for Tuesday, May 26, 2020. We begin every meeting with a call to order and a pledge to the flag. So if everyone would please stand and restate the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We have an agenda for this special meeting and the budget hearing. So if everyone on board has got those that agenda, I need a motion to accept that agenda. So if any board member would raise their hand to make a motion to accept the agenda. Ms. Gagenschatz, and do I have a second?
That's Mrs. Fortna.
Thank you. Are there any, I guess there's really no discussions, but any comments? If not, all board members willing to accept the agenda, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you much. So we have the required annual meeting documents, and my guess is, Ms. Slagle, you are going to go over that, or are you, Mr. Certicio? Okay.
I'd be happy to do that. I can share
That's wonderful.
I can share my screen. Just give me a moment to get that up so that you all can see what we're looking at here. So the legal notice you'll see here, this is the, one moment. So the official notice to the papers is our legal notice, and this year our legal notice was a bit different due to the time constraints put on us by the executive order, but it is very similar to previous years. And this legal notice normally would be advertised 4 times prior to the budget vote. The executive order specified 2 times. So this is advertised both on our website and also in the local paper, The Observer. So it lays out, various things about the budget vote. I won't go into complete detail there, but that is available to anybody on our district website. And then qualifications of voters. So this is listed on our budget postcard. And I'll remind everyone that this postcard was included in the absentee ballot mailing that went to all eligible voters in the district. So you'll see here qualifications for voting. To vote, you must be at least 18 years of age, a U.S. citizen, and a legal resident of the district for 30 days prior to June 9th, 2020. To vote, you do not have to own property, and you do not have to be a parent of a child in the district. Any questions on that?
Not. Thank you very much, Ms. Slagle. And as we proceed to the proposed budget by Mr. Forbes, if there is anyone on this meeting, anyone from the public, anyone can ask comments of the budget, and if they can email to Ms. Slagle at cslagle, CSLAGLE at fcsd.wnyric.org. And there's also a phone number, Ms. Slagle, if you would.
Yes, so I put this information up on your screen. You should see it now.
Wonderful.
So if anyone would like to participate, we do have as Mr. Aldrich said, we have a hear from the public portion of the meeting later on. So feel free to email me or give me a call, and those questions will be read to the board.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to just make sure that everyone understood that all questions will be asked at this meeting from the public. So if anybody has a question on the budget, just let us know and we will ask that during the meeting. With that, we have the presentation of the tentative budget for the 2021 school year by Mr. Forbes.
Make sure I'm unmuted there. Thank you. This would obviously be very similar to the presentation that the board went over last week. I pulled out some of the slides that were important to your decision-making process last week and just gave more of a summary review for today. In terms of salaries and benefits, the total category were up 0.28% or 62,000, the distribution of which is instructional up 1.37 or 180,000, non-instructional up 60,000 or 2.48%, and our benefits are down 179,000, and I'll get to that explanation in just a second. We also have in this budget 5 teacher retirements, all of whom were eligible for the Fredonia Teachers Association contract incentive. We have budgeted to replace 4.5 of those individuals at an estimated step of 430M from the FTA current salary schedule. In terms of salaries and benefits, you can see the second line down, the New York State Teachers Retirement System. That's our big help this year. The rates dropped about 2%, and we were able to gain some savings by that occurring. So we're down 13% there. Social Security would be tied to your salaries, and we're up minimally there. Salaries reflected as well. Group health insurance, the rates came in very favorable, and with the retirements, we were able, last year and this year, we were able to shift a little bit of cost there, so that we're only up 0.3%. And overall, you're down, I'm sorry, 179,000 or 2.6. Equipment, materials, and supplies, this is district-wide. You're down in that category by 78%. Your big drop there is equipment. We eliminated a good portion of the equipment request during the budget process. Thank you to the administrators for that. We also took out the vehicle request from the maintenance department, which was 40,000 alone from that department. Materials and supplies across the board, this would be instructional and non-instructional. You're up 14,000. Contractual expense and BOCES services, and that's out to be an increase of 1.83% or 117,000. Of course, the BOCES costs are driving that. We're up 6.4% there or 200,000. And I'm sure the board recalls through the course of the budget conversations we've had the last couple of months, that at one point that was over $600,000 based upon students that we added during the current school year and the projections that we had for next year. Kristen Farrow and the administrators and Mr. Terticio were able to create a class at our Wheelock school, which we were able to pull back a few of the students. We also had another one that moved out. Just all those things came together kind of at the end, but it did reduce us to 200. The next slide is debt service and interfund transfers. This would be your principal and interest on any debt that the district has. This would include projections for principal and interest on your $8.5 million project, which is growing at a note in June. Also is a $15,000 budgeted transfer to our federal funds, which takes into account the disproportion of the special ed costs for our St. Mary's students. Taking a look then at the expenditure side, overall, you're up total budget of $359,000. As we've talked about on numerous occasions, within the revenue portion of this budget, there is a foundation aid pandemic adjustment from the governor and legislative run. It was a $315,000 decrease to our state aid. That currently, as of today, still remains offset by federal CARES restoration of $315,000. So the net of that is zero. There is language, as we've talked about in the budget process, that allows the state to reduce the state aid by up to the amount of the pandemic adjustment mid-year. We continue to see that the timing of that has been pushed out. It appears as though New York State is waiting for the federal government to make a final stand, and then they will make their decision on what to do from there. Taking a look at the next slide then for your proposed revenue and fund balance summary. Our local share, we're up $8,000. State revenue, we're up $54,000, all of which is in categorical aid, meaning you have to spend it in 1 year to get reimbursed the next year. That would be BOCES transportation, software, hardware, library materials, and textbooks, and excess cost aid for your high cost special education students. Based upon the board's decision last week, our fund balance assigned to this budget draft is $1,180,295,000, which represents a 13% increase in the category. And your tax levy has been set in the budget draft 1%. Taking a look at the bottom, you can see the distribution of state aid versus tax levy as a percentage of your budget. Really almost exactly the same as last year, the 19-20 school year. We also need to comply with what remains of the state budget caps. The first is the administrative cap, which cannot exceed the administrative percentage of the prior year's budget. That's 13.05%, and we currently sit $167,000 under that. The overall budget cap was replaced with a tax levy limit, which we'll get to in a second. And if the district were to need to do super majority, which is not the case this year, we would have 60%. And if we're defeated twice, the district would have to go to a 0% levy automatically. Our tax cap information, and you may recall that this changed a little bit last week based upon what BOCES did in terms of reducing some of their capital project expense. So our maximum tax levy percentage increase went from 3.85 to 3.76%. Your current proposed levy for this budget draft is $16,219,000, which is $442,000 less than you would be allowed in tax cap calculation. Also within this budget, there is a $100,000 capital outlay. The district does get their building aid percentage back against those dollars, which is 82.7%. So you're getting $82,000 back for every $100,000 you spend. On this one, we have exterior repointing and masonry work, replacement of all interior signs, both classroom and offices, partly because over time, the side new exterior signage for the Main Street campus. This would be each building entrance have a new sign. The district office will have a sign, and then as you come up the driveway from Route 20, there's a directional sign that leads you to each office, and that'll be changed to reflect the moving of the high school office, and that'll be freshened up a little bit. And then part of the project is the required New York State architect's fee.
Mr. Forbes?
Yes.
Your computer froze up right when you were about to talk about interior signage. So we didn't hear what you said there, and then you came back on when you were talking about the exterior signage for each of the offices and the main entryway.
Interior piece was that over time from going back to Vision 2000, we had all new signage put in, which included the handicap braille. And some of those over time, the numbers have gone, people have moved, their names aren't the same anymore. So rather than piecemeal in those, we decided to go with a full project to replace all of those, including updating for the new spaces. And good.
Thank you.
So the next slide then is comparative budget data. This just takes a look at your budget going back to 2013-14, the dollar changes, the percentage increases. The bottom you'll know 7-year average increase is 1.19%, which is interesting because the 2020-21 proposal was also 1.19%. So it's a numbers thing. And then the 3-year average increase, it was actually a decrease of a negative 1.14%. Tax levy limit, how has Fredonia done against that? Going back to the 2012-13, which was the first year that the regulations changed, 5 times out of 9, the board has decided to go with a number less than they would be allowed to under the legal limit, including the last 3 years, where you've had a 1.5, a 0%, and the proposal for 2021 is 1%. Then the next slide would be some comparative tax levy, just to show from 13-14 what your percentage changes are. And most of those are under 1.5% and several are under 1%. So it's held pretty steady going back across the time period. 7-year average increase is 1.05%, 3-year average increase is 0.8%. And then based upon the proposed budget that was approved by the board last week, your proposed tax rates are listed on the left-hand side. Pomfret $1.23, Arkwright 43 cents, Portland 38 cents, Sheridan 35 cents, and Dunkirk 32 cents. And that's based upon what you have today. A good example of what may happen going down the road, assuming there's no change in state revenue, is when you get your equalization rates and assessed values, things change. So taking a look at 1920, which is the 2 right-hand columns, you'll see that at the time of the budget, we went with 0%, $0, and in each case, each of those towns was reduced based upon those equalization rates and value. So it's quite possible you could be lower than what dollar per thousand in town of Pomfret is equal to $130,000 with expense. 1% of spending is $303,000. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forbes. At this time, if there are any questions from the board members or from the public.
I do not have any questions from the public at this time.
No questions. No phone
Correct.
calls.
No.
Mr. Aldridge,
Yes.
under D, actions necessary if budget vote is defeated.
Yes. Do you want to comment on that?
Sure, sure. So in a normal year, that this would be an easy answer. The board would need to decide if they wanted to put the budget up for a second vote, and you can still do that. The difference this year is we have not been given any guidance from the governor or SUD about when that second vote takes place. Clearly, our vote would need to happen before the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. The other option is that the board could adopt a contingent budget, which would mean 0% and all that goes along with that, most likely no equipment purchases. But going back to that first piece, if the budget vote is defeated and the board wishes to go to a second vote, to do that, again, it would be through absentee ballot, and Ms. Lakes and I, along with Forbes and the rest of the team, would need to get to work and figure out how we can do that, probably starting on June 10th, and trying to get that together in a very short time.
Now, Mr. Certicio, that absentee ballot vote, if those were defeated, that would have to be completed by June 30th. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Hawk, you're on mute. You're on mute.
So question, On the contingency piece, would we just be subtracting the equipment, which would be around $100,000?
Well, we go to 0%, and I'm looking for that slide. We would eliminate equipment for sure. I think it was about 84,000. John, Mr. Forbes, help me out with the math.
Yeah, you'd have to eliminate all equipment. You'd have to look at eliminating field trips and things like that, most of which are out already. And then you'd probably have another 75 to 80,000 to get from somewhere else.
So what's the total dollar amount? 300?
160 to get your levy to zero is 165.95.
165.95. Okay, so is that unreasonable to think if we needed to restore some of these things, if in worst case scenario it goes to zero by vote, and let's say defeated a second time, that we would be able to restore some of these things selectively with our fund balance?
There's two ways actually. One, you could do that. I'm not sure how the double vote would be if it's equipment pieces, because you'd be using assigned fund balance as opposed to levy. So we'd have to check on that. But what you could also do if it was a piece of equipment that was necessary for health and safety at any time in any year, the board has the ability to make a motion and approve that and have that item purchased. So I guess it would depend on what it was and how you did.
So actually the allocation, instead of being 1,180,000, would then be adding 165 to it, or any amount below that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board, from the public? Nothing, huh?
Still no questions. No.
Mr. Forbes, you did a great job.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Next, we're just hearing a report on items to be voted upon by the special meeting of voters. Mr. Certicio, I'm assuming you're taking that.
Sure. The absentee ballots have been delivered. I know Ms. Slagle is going to talk about that in a little bit. The basic budget is $30,666,526. Also, the Board of Education election. This election shall be held to fill 2 at-large positions on the board. The candidate receiving the largest number of votes shall be elected to a term commencing July 1, 2020 and expiring on June 30th, 2025. The candidate receiving the second largest number of votes shall be elected to a term commencing upon election and expiring June 30th, 2022. The 2 candidates are Brian F. Aldrich and Stephen E. Johnston.
Okay. Seeing that there's still no comments from the public, we will recess the special district meeting until June 9th. We are going to have a regular meeting on the 9th. Actually, before I get into that, Ms. Slagle, if you would like to discuss some of the issues that we're having with the absentee ballots. I know that there's been some questions, and if you could explain that maybe a little bit better and fill us in. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen once again, just so you have some visuals here. So one of the questions I had received, I think I can answer tonight, and of course I may be answering a question that others have as well, but I wanted to just visually show the process to put your ballot in the mail. So up here you'll see this is an example of what the ballot, or at least part of the ballot, looks like. So when you receive your ballot, you will mark your ballot. There are two sides. So you will mark your ballot, and then that ballot goes inside of this second example here, the ballot envelope. And that envelope gets sealed, and you will sign, as a voter, you will sign the outside of this envelope. And that sealed envelope, I do not open that envelope. That goes straight to the Board of Elections. So the process is intact. I, of course, am not allowed to see those ballots. And so I just want to assure the public and the voters that I will never see what is inside of that envelope until the Board of Election has counted it. And then your ballot envelope goes inside the business reply return envelope, and that is what comes to the district office and to me. So as the district clerk, I will open this outer envelope, and I will cross-check the signature of the voter against the signature poll book that I have received from the Board of Elections. But that is all I do. I do not open it from there. And then I will take those ballots, as I said, to the Board of Elections, and they will open those and count those for us. And I just wanted, oh, sorry, yes.
I just wanted to ask a question. So let's say there's a ballot envelope that you feel like the signature doesn't match or is sort of questionable or maybe hasn't been signed at all. Will you still provide that to the Board of Elections and decide what to do with it, or what happens with that envelope?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this would be the same as has happened in previous years. If we have an absentee ballot envelope that comes back to us and it has not been signed, that is actually up to the district to decide whether to count that ballot. The Board of Elections will not make that decision for us. So, you know, if we have a certain number of those that are questionable, I would probably refer to Mr. Sortisio to, you know, have that discussion. I have been advised by our attorneys and the Board of Elections that we be a little bit lenient on that and allow for some variation of signature because, you know, of course that can happen. So I would certainly refer to others to make that decision.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Mr. Forster, did you have a question?
It was really the same type of question in regards to if somebody made a mistake and didn't fill a part of it out, you know, on this envelope, what are the consequences, and, you know, would that vote still be counted, that type of a thing? So.
Sure. You know, obviously if they leave out, you know, their city or zip or something like that, I think that's an easy decision. But again, if there's any question on the signature or the name, then I would refer that to others. But if it is completely blank, I would venture to say that we would not be able to count that as a valid ballot. So I would just remind everyone and recommend that this is completely filled out so that we may treat it as a valid ballot.
Could you address the timing of the vote results too, please?
Sure, absolutely. So up until today, I thought that we were going to have a bit of a delay in the count, but I actually received word from the Board of Elections that we will be counted on the 9th. We'll be the last district on the 9th to be counted, so it will be late in the evening on the 9th, but I will receive results on the 9th rather than the 10th, which is what we previously had anticipated. So I know, Mr. Aldrich, you know, we had discussed having a meeting on the 9th, and we do need to reopen that special meeting that we are adjourning at the end of this meeting in order to declare the polls closed and deal with some regular business as well. And then at some point we need to have a meeting to certify the vote. So Mr. Aldrich, I'll let you discuss that a bit, but I know that was part of our discussion in terms of meetings.
Do we only know that our district is the last of the day? Is that correct?
Yes, so
Voted
they've
to be
estimated it will be
kept?
around, I'm sorry. They've estimated it will be around 8 p.m. 8
Oh,
p.m. when
really?
I counted, so probably more like 9 p.m. when I have results.
Okay. So if we have a long meeting, 3-hour meeting on the 9th, don't get any ideas, Mr. Certicio. That we would stay in session until we receive results. If not, we would address it.
We could do a few things. We could have our regular meeting on the 9th to address some of the regular business we need to accomplish. And then we could have another meeting on another date to certify the vote. We don't legally have to certify the vote that evening. So that would just be up to the board's discretion.
Okay. And it will be, okay. And then Mr. Paskey will we'll say that the voting has ended at 5 o'clock on the 9th.
Right. So typically we would have Mr. Paschke as the chairman. We would have him declare the polls open and closed. We obviously are doing things a little bit differently this year, but it was advised to us that we still needed to appoint a chairman. So we will do that. And just to further clarify, again, depending on what the board's desire is, we could certify the vote that evening. So it's up for discussion, I guess, whatever. We only need a quorum in order to do that. We would not need all members, but.
Well, I'm assuming here that it would be possible to go through our regular meeting on the 9th, and if we don't have results of the election by the time we're ready to adjourn, we could adjourn on the 9th and then get enough board members on the 10th for a quorum to certify the election results.
That's what I would recommend, partly because that would mean I would not be able to be part of the regular meeting because I will be physically driving the ballots to Mayville and I have to be a part of the counting process. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Okay.
Mr. Hawk, I saw you had a question.
Yeah, back to the signature piece.
Sure.
Because of the list that the Chautauqua County has on hand for signatures, being limited to possibly only maybe 1/10 of the people that we have sent absentee ballots out, how would you verify signature?
Sure. So we've been advised to verify the signature if we have it. We allow anyone who is an eligible voter to vote. So just the same as you would in a regular year, if someone came to vote and they were not on our list from the county, that doesn't mean they're not allowed to vote. It just means that we have to verify their address. So if I receive a ballot from someone whose signature I do not have, we will count it. The only time there would be a question about counting is if there was a signature for someone we had that person's name, but the signature was very different. So we had a suspicion that it was not that person's signature. But that's a great question because we will definitely receive ballots, I'm sure, from eligible voters who are not necessarily registered voters.
And just won't be able to verify.
I won't be able to cross-check a signature, but yeah, it will still be a valid ballot. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we are going to adjourn this meeting. We need a motion to adjourn this special district meeting until June 9th. We've got it 5 o'clock, is that correct?
Again, that would be up to the board. If we want to declare the polls, or the polls closed at 5, we could start at 5, but we could also have a regular meeting at 6 and do it at that time. So
Okay.
we had discussed
Well,
6 o'clock.
Let us do it that at 6 o'clock instead of 5,
Okay,
if that's okay, with the regular meeting immediately after that.
perfect.
Okay, so I need a motion from a board member to recess this special district meeting until June 9th at 6 p.m. Mr. Hawk, in a second. Ms. Gagenschatz. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Is that a question, Mr. Forrester, or a yes? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you very much. So that ends our well, it is the end of this portion of our special district meeting for the budget hearing. We will move right into our regular meeting for the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education for Tuesday, May 26, 2020. We have already said the pledge to the flag, so we're going to move right into the agenda. We have a proposed agenda, as everyone has got a copy of, and I need a motion to accept this agenda. So if I could have a motion, Mr. Forrester, thank you, and a second. Ms. Gagenschatz, thank you very much. Before we get into questions, I'm going to ask, I believe, Mr. Rada, you have some comments on some, I'll call it a typo, on page 3 and 4. Mr. Rada?
Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. Under Roman numeral number 4, personnel, we're looking at number 3, number 4, and number 5. Typically, when we appoint new instructional faculty people, they have a 4-year probationary period, but we have a couple exceptions. Under number 3 and number 4, Zach Voorhees and Chandler Henningham have been with the district as long-term substitutes since September of 2018. Now that we're appointing them to a probationary position in the same certification and tenure area, we can credit them with 2 years of JERMA credit, and this will reduce their probationary period to 2 years. So in that motion, their end of probationary period should be August 31st, 2022. And that's for number 3 and number 4.
And did you say that there was an issue with number 5 also?
In number 5 is another exception to APPR law. In number 5, Paige Cobb, Paige, in doing a little bit of research, had received tenure in a different district prior to us hiring her. So that can reduce her tenure, her probationary period, from 4 years to 3 years. So Paige's end date will be August 31st, 2023.
2022?
2023.
23, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're counting those as typos rather than doing an addendum agenda. So do we have any other questions on that, on the agenda before we accept it? Okay, so if we don't have any questions from the board, all those in favor of approving the agenda, the proposed agenda, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. We're going to move right into the financial treasurer's report. Mr. Certicio.
Thanks, Mr. Aldridge. What you see is two change orders. One is a deduct change order, meaning that it is money in the allowances that was not used by the contractor, and that's in the amount of $3,723. And then you'll see a regular change order in the amount of $26,626. Overall, you net those two out. So the additional change order amount is actually $22,000 and some change. And that is all in regards to correcting the heating system in the high school guidance suite, which we've talked about a number of times was necessary. Certainly not today. We don't need any extra heat in there today, but it'll be appreciated come more normal weather in the late fall and winter.
Okay. Any questions on that? Mr. Hawk.
So, Jeff, we talked about this at facilities meeting in regards to the cost. It seems to be very similar to its original proposal of $25,000. Who really designed this improperly, or was it installed improperly?
Well, the installers follow the schematics that the architects put together, Mr. Hawk. And, you know, as you know, as being part of the facilities committee and also through numerous board reports, there was a lot of examination done into the heating system that was installed. And ultimately, the decision was made that what was installed is not adequate to heat the spaces that we're talking about. That would be the district office and the high school student services suite. Also, ultimately, what was shared with us, and I again shared with the committee and with the board, is that this design could have happened at the beginning or happened the way it's happening now. In either way, you know, there would be cost to the district. So if you're asking why it wasn't, why the original installation wasn't correct, that goes on the design team, not the installers.
Okay. Well, the only piece that I would like to add to what you just said, I understand that if it had been designed properly, I think that it maybe would have went out to competitive bid instead of just awarded. So it is what it is. We got to pay for the shortfall in the design. The other question I have, and it's not relative to this, but it's relative to design that we're talking about presently and shortcomings. Could you please update me as to what was the final decision as to closing up the gaps where partitions met the center of window glass?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I consider that a punch list item that hasn't been addressed yet. I do believe maybe in Mr. Drollinger's office it has been addressed. Is that correct, Mr. Drollinger? But I do not believe it's been addressed in Mr. Paschke's or Mrs. Troutman's offices yet. Is that correct?
It did finish mine today.
Oh, okay, great. How is it?
It looks good. I haven't been able to test it out to see if people can hear on the other side yet, but it's a very tight fit, so it looks good.
Great. Mrs. Troutman, how about you?
They were also working on mine today as well.
Great. Thank you.
Was this at additional cost to the district?
I have not approved any additional cost in regards to that. I've not seen any change order in regards to that. That's something we brought to their attention very early on. So as of this moment, Mr. Hawk, I have not seen a request for any additional funds to fix that shortcoming.
Okay. And I know there were a few other things that the facilities meeting had, or group had, like boxes next to the nurse's office that protruded out past the surface unevenly. I do know, I am aware of what's happening with the loading dock. You know, has anything changed with that other piece?
With the electric boxes near the nurse's office?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm talking to Paul Hogue, the site superintendent. It doesn't appear that the one box that still protrudes can be really tightened down anymore. So he was contemplating creating a frame to go around it so that exposed edge and that space is remedied. As far as I know, I was in district last week, and I did check on that and hadn't been rectified at that point.
Okay. Is there an ability for a board member or facilities member? I'm interested to see how things were rectified where the walls met the glass, to visit that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would look at dates and times when the building is already occupied. And I know we have some of those published dates. I think middle school has a pickup tomorrow, I think 3 to 6. Is that right, Paul?
Yes.
And Mr. Paschke, what about you?
I apologize. There's construction going on next door. I couldn't hear that well. What was the question?
When is the next time that you're expecting people to be in your building?
We have teachers coming in tomorrow to finish up cleaning their rooms to get them ready for the summer cleaning.
Yeah, what's the time frame?
Tomorrow is 8 in the morning till noon, and then 3 to 6.
Okay. And Mr. Drollinger, how about you?
We too have teachers working in the building. They don't have set hours they can come and go, but our office staff was there today for part of the day. We can make arrangements if needed.
Well, I know Mr. Hawk works a busy schedule as well. And I think if your office staff is going to be in that, and assuming, you know, Mr. Hawk, I know you want to see it and anyone else is welcome to go as well. It's preferential to have additional people in the office when regular office staff is not there. So I'm thinking after 5, if you can make that work, Mr. Hawk, might be best.
Okay. And how would I gain entrance to the building? Who would I contact?
Really, principals, are you planning on being in the district till 6?
Yes, I'll be there. You can come to the middle school area and I'll get you in.
Okay.
Thanks, Mrs. Troutman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Therefore, all board members in favor of the approved change orders. Did we make a motion on this? I don't remember. That was so long ago.
I don't believe so.
No. All right. Well, thank you. I guess before we discuss that, we should have made a motion. But if I could have a motion to for the approval of the change orders. Mr. Johnson and Ms. Fortna seconded that. So if there are no other questions, all members, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Next, we have a memorandum of an agreement between the Fredonia Central School District and the Fredonia Teachers Association regarding the modification to coach stipends. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Gegenschatz, and a second. Mr. Forrester, thank you. Mr. Certesio, can you shed a little light on this, please?
Sure. As I mentioned previously to the board, we'd come to an agreement with the FTA to provide some compensation for spring coaches whose seasons had started before the pandemic and the subsequent closure of the school buildings. We settled on a fair amount of being 1/5 of the typical stipend. And in your backup, you have a list of each coach as well as what the dollar amount equates to in terms of being that 1/5. There are a couple of coaches that will not be receiving anything because their seasons hadn't started yet. I think the board recognizes that there's an official start date to sports seasons, but there's also an awful lot of work that goes on even before that date in terms of paperwork and whatnot. And so we settled on what we thought was fair to compensate those individuals for their work with our students in their capacity as coaches.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye, or by raising your hand. Thank you very much. We next have 5 personnel issues, and if I've got a board member who would like to break these down, or if we would like to take those all at once. Do we have any? Okay, so if I could get a motion to take all 5 of these at once, Mr. Hawk, and a second, Ms. Fortnell. And Mr. Certicio, if you could just go through each one of these individually. I know Mr. Rada has already corrected us on 3 of those, but.
Sure. So one of the things that I want to make sure is clear is that the positions that you are being asked to approve tonight, they're not new to the district. They are replacements for either a resignation or a retirement. And as we heard earlier, we had 5 retirements, 5.0 full-time equivalents retiring. And as a district, we're only replacing 4.5 of those. Okay? There's a reduction in the phys ed position, which is not pertinent for the rest of the conversation, but I just want to be clear that we're not adding positions. We are simply replacing people that left either for a different position elsewhere, a different position within our own organization, or for retirement purposes. So Shannon Farrell holds initial certification in English to speakers of other languages. She's also certified in Spanish. She currently has a position in Silver Creek and is certainly interested in coming to Fredonia for a number of reasons. This is a position that was vacated when one of our middle school teachers accepted a position with BOCES and left a couple of months ago. Mrs. Troutman, if you'd like to share anything about Shannon, you're welcome to.
We did interviews. We had quite quite a selection pool to choose from. We had some teachers involved as well as administration, and we found her to really be a strong candidate. She having Spanish is a really good thing for us because our Spanish numbers keep growing. So we're very excited to have her join our team.
Thank you. Your second candidate is Christina Brinkle-Cooper. And Mrs. Troutman, is Christina, is this the middle school position again? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to turn this over to you in a second, but what I do want to say is that the hiring process that was created and adopted this past year carried through even through remote interviews. So we didn't change our expectations or our process. We just adjusted the delivery, similar to what we're all doing right now via this board meeting. So I appreciate Mr. Granda's leadership and on the human resources side of things, and our building principals for working through difficult interview processes as we dealt with computer issues and so on and so forth. And the final, as you're aware, the final round interviews are with the building principal and me. And we had to restart a couple of those because we had a lot of frozen faces and we couldn't hear each other. But you know, when you get some adversity, you carry on and work things out. So, Ms. Troutman, why don't you talk about Christina for a minute, please?
Sure. Christina brings some great experience to our district with data and MTSS. So we were very excited about that. We had a team of about 8 teachers who worked through quite a few candidates. And Christina comes with glowing reviews from her principal that she is working with right now. So we are very excited for her to join our 5th grade team.
Thank you. Third on our list today is Chandler Henningham. He's been a long-term sub for us for a year and a half or maybe a full 2 years. Chandler has fit right in with the middle school team. He is truly beloved by students and parents. He went through the regular interview process. This wasn't a transfer. It wasn't our own teacher looking, and there's still a process for that. But he competed with applicants unknown to the district, and sometimes that's a really hard position to put someone in. But that's our process. It's the right process. Anything you want to add about Mr. Henningham, Mrs. Troutman?
He's done an absolutely fabulous job for us for the last 2 years. He's part of the 6th grade team. You know, I really talk to the 6th grade team a lot when making decisions for their team because they work together so well, and they are very happy that, you know, he is joining their team. So we're very excited to have Chandler.
Thank you. And then number 4 on our list is Zach Fories, who's a math teacher in the high school. He's been with the district for a number of years in both a part-time and a full-time long-term sub capacity. Interestingly, just this morning, we received Mr. Paschke's official resignation from his math position, so we can go forward with. I'm being a little bit humorous here. We can go forward with Zach's appointment. But you know, it was a little touch and go there, Darren. We didn't get that letter. I thought you were going to give up that tenure that you just got as a principal. Why don't you fill the board in a little bit on Zach and the interview process he went through as well?
Similarly, Zach interviewed there were a wide number of candidates. When it came down to it, I mean, we had some fantastic applicants for this, and Zach really had to prove himself, and he did. He's been an incredible resource for the kids. He comes in early, he stays late, he designates all of his planning time to work with kids. Now that we're in remote learning, he's reaching out to parents on a regular basis. I get emails from the parents thanking the district for the phenomenal job he's doing with his communication and his help for kids. Just above and beyond constantly. The math department is thrilled that he has this position. He's a great team member. He just constantly works with every member of the department to improve his practice and help everybody else improve theirs. So, I mean, he's a natural teacher. He works hard at it, despite the fact that it comes easy for him. So I'm just proud of him, glad to have him on board.
Yeah, we had a really outstanding final interview with Zach, and it was not an easy interview by any stretch of the imagination. Mr. Paschke's correct. There was some very significant competition, if you will. If we had 2 math openings, both would be filled with really competent instructors. Zach knows that, you know, being in the incumbent in some ways is easy. In some ways, it's more of a challenge. As you know, we pressed him to challenge the department to move forward and not simply just simply fall in line. And I do believe that young man is ready for that challenge. Finally, we have Paige Cobb. Paige has a significant amount of experience in Chautauqua County, both in Sherman and Cassadaga. Casadega's loss is our gain in many ways, and Paige was unfortunate for them. Was a subject of one of their budget constraints, and she interviewed again against a cadre of others. Really outstanding teacher who has a lot of experience. I think Mr. Gillinger, correct me if I'm wrong, you're thinking first grade team with her, which will really be an outstanding addition and really balance that team out. So go ahead, Mr. Gillinger, your impressions?
Yeah, she's great. We had a really competitive candidate pool, and our team was faced with some tough decisions, and Paige rose to the top. She came highly recommended from Casadega, and I think she's going to be a great member of that first grade team. I look forward to getting to know her better and seeing her for the first time in person one of these days, hopefully sooner than later. And yeah, she'll be great member for the team.
Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, thank you all. Any questions from the board? If not, all those in favor of all 5 signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That is passed. Next we have new business and the approval of minutes from the CSE and the CPSE meetings. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Gagenstadt, and a second? Ms. Powell-Fortnott, thank you. Any questions on that? If not, all board members in favor of that, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Next, we have announcements and board correspondence. As we discussed earlier, we have the annual district budget vote and board elections to take place Tuesday, June 9th, via absentee ballot only. Ballots can be mailed or dropped off at the district office prior to 5 o'clock on the 9th. Eligible district voters will receive an absentee ballot and return envelope with postage included in the mail. For more information regarding this process, please visit our district website at www.fredonia.wnyric.org. Mr. Certicio, do you have any other comments for the meeting?
No, I want to thank Mr. Forbes, the board, and the administrative team for their work on the budget. I certainly want to thank Ms. Slagle for the steep learning curve that she's climbed rather rapidly regarding these absentee ballots and all the different nuances that go with it. And I also want to share my appreciation with the teachers and the aides for their work this week, coming weeks to clean out lockers and make sure our rooms are ready for summer cleaning. And I also want to thank everyone that's been involved with the hiring process in a very unusual year. I look forward to some of our celebrations that are forthcoming in whatever way they're going to take place.
Thank you very much. Board members, Mr. Jambrone, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
No? Mr. Forrester?
No, thank you.
Mr. Hawk? No?
Nope.
Mr. Jackson?
No, thank you.
Ms. Gagenstadt?
No, thanks, nothing.
And Ms. Powell-Fortnott?
Nothing, thank you.
Sounds like we've got a very quiet meeting today. Thank you. As far as administrators, Mr. Paskey, anything going on in the high school today?
A little bit. I got a formal communication from the college today saying that they would not be able to host graduation for the 2020 year, which is okay because we are looking at other options for that. I also received communication today that George Borrello is lobbying the governor to allow outdoor graduation starting July 6th, which is past the date that we were planning for our graduation. But I do have a meeting tonight with some of our graduation team. We'll be discussing all of those items. Just lastly, I wanted to mention that if there are people watching this that have concerns about the end of the school year, there's some, I guess, misunderstandings out there among some of our students and parents. The school year is not over, and we are still, we do have some work to do, and any of the work that is, as long as you get your work complete for the fourth quarter, there's an opportunity to still improve your overall grade for your courses. So I encourage all of our students to continue working through June 8th, which is their last day, not only to improve their grades, but to better prepare themselves for future courses.
Thank you, Mr. Paskey. I'll pass that word on. All that.
Thank you.
Ms. Troutman.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Hi, we had locker pickup materials today, so we did get some parents and kids driving through to pick up locker materials. We are doing it again tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. So we're hopeful that more materials will be picked up. And we're just looking forward to continuing to work with the kids till the end of the school year.
Thank you. Mr. Drowlinger.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank our teachers who have continued to hold Zooms with their kids on a regular basis. I was in one today and it was nice to see our kids. And the elementary school will have a pickup Monday, June 8th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. All of our teachers will be there standing far apart around the bus loop, and the community will be invited to come drive their car to the teacher, and there will be an exchange of goods because the students did leave some things in their desks and in their lockers. So on that date, we'll be passing those things back, and we'll also be collecting library books and Chromebooks and other things on that date as well. So we look forward to seeing all the kids in a safe distance on Monday, June 8th.
Thank you. Ms. Piper.
Hello. I want to put a shout out that this Friday, May 29th, our nurse has made some phone calls to some parents about coming by Wheelock and picking up their medications and a few personal items. I also want to remind all Village and Fredonia School residents that if you have a child who will be turning 4 or 5 by December 1st, to please register them for UPK or kindergarten. They can call the Wheelock phone number and that will come to either my phone or Mrs. Rowe, the secretary, and we will get you the materials necessary. We are more than happy to take any completed packets on May 29th between 8:30 and noon. We will be at Wheelock in the bus loop. So if you have not been able to mail back your packets, feel free to come on by and drop them off. We will be there until noon on Friday. And then on June 10th, we will be doing a drive-by clap out for our students and pre-K and kindergarten at Wheelock. We encourage all of our students to ride with their parents in the cars, drive through the bus loop, wave at their teachers. I know our kindergarten teachers have made memory books for each of their students, and they'd like to be able to give those books to the children. So we're hoping we see all of our students on June 10th between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the bus loop at Wheelock. And that's it.
Thank you. It's a brand new beginning for next year.
That's right.
Great. Mr. Forbes, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing.
No? Thank you. Mr. Rada.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Farrell.
Sure. I just wanted to thank the special ed department for their continued dedication to our students. We'll be working over the next short amount of time to finalize a plan for our extended school year program, which is a mandatory summer program for a small number of students with disabilities. And as you know, it will be delivered in a remote learning mode this year. So we're figuring all of that out. We'll have more to talk about in short order.
Great, thank you. Ms. Slagle.
Just a quick thank you to everyone, just to echo what Mr. Sortisio said, everyone involved in the process of getting these ballots out. Thank you very much. And I want to assure the public that if they call my office number, I will get the call whether I'm in the office or not. So if anyone has any questions regarding the budget vote, I am available for those questions. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for our meeting. But before we do end, there's so many teachers and aides and administrators who, none of this is easy. None of this has ever been done before. And I appreciate everyone's efforts on this whole thing. It's not just with our students, but with the ballot, just getting prepared for next year, everything. I appreciate everyone's input and keeping strong till the end. Thank you very much. With that, if I could have a motion to adjourn. Okay, I think that was Mr. Jambrone, and we've got Mr. Forrester seconding. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.